Throughout life, you have to make an impossibly large amount of decisions. What's your favorite color? What's your favorite dinosaur? What career will you spend your life pursuing? Do you put a tinfoil ball inside your microwave, like the funny man on Twitter told you to? What will you have for breakfast? But there's one decision that everyone makes. A decision you make most likely without even thinking about it. A decision that has more of an impact on your life than anything else. More than the country you were born in, more than the tax bracket you were born into. The decision that separates the Fem-Boys from the Fem-Men. Such an extremely important decision, and yet you make it more than likely before you're even enrolled into school. That decision being, what's cooler? Pirates or cowboys? This is a very difficult decision, because if we're being objective, they're both pretty cool. But what it comes down to is, would you rather plunder with a crew of rapscallions, or sip some whiskey down at the local saloon? Now, a large majority of my viewers are from North America, and hence more than likely know what a cowboy is. But for the viewers from outside of North America, a cowboy is just a cattle rancher who did it on horseback, generally in the time period of the Wild West, more specifically in the 1860s through 1890s. But you can still be a cowboy today if you want. But despite the fact that when I think of America, I think of cowboys, the tradition of cowboys actually originates from Spain, and then making its way to Mexico, moving up through America, and up to Canada. And that's kinda it. In the real world, cowboys were kinda boring. Like, don't get me wrong, I sure enjoy some beef, but when I think of a cowboy, I don't think of a cattle rancher. I think of a big iron-toting, damsel tied to the railroad rescuing, a 10-gallon hat wearing, lasso spinning cowboy. Cowboys that got into walk-down duels in the center of town, and got into bar fights. The cowboys that were nomads, who had no home, barely a name, just a horse and a gun. But we can't have guns, so... And that's kinda it. Cowboys didn't do much. They do have a very large footprint though. In Alberta, they have a stampede every year, in the cowboy capital of Canada, formerly known as Calgary. And in America, they have a National Cowboy Day, on the 4th Saturday of July, which is cool as hell. While cowboys aren't per se exclusive to North America, when thinking of a cowboy, it's more than likely that you think of North America. Or at least I do. But pirates, on the other hand, they supersede borders. And time for that matter, as the earliest documented case of piracy comes from the Mediterranean in the 14th century. And while I'll try to keep my bias to myself until the end of the video, I'll say this: pirates have much more interesting stuff to talk about. Pirates are criminals who robbed other boats. But unlike what you might think, or at least what I thought, pirates weren't just a ragtag group of rapscallions who were up to no good. They were actually relatively organized groups that actually kind of ran like a company. On board a pirate ship, there was a hierarchy of ranks, starting at sailors, then petty officers, then warrant officers, then sailing masters and lieutenants, then admiral of fleet, then the quartermaster, and the captain. Pirates were generally very egalitarian. Big word, I know, meaning they prioritized equality amongst the crew. So much so that even though the quartermaster wasn't the highest rank, he had full power to veto any decision that the captain made. Pirate communities also often operated as a democracy, and were actually some of the first to adopt a system of checks and balances. Pirates even had an official code. The pirate code was real. It varied from group to group, and they're all written in Old English, so I took one and tried to translate it the best I can. Hopefully someone smarter than me can come along and actually translate it. But it's not exactly short, so these are really condensed translations. 1. Every man has an equal vote in affairs and equal access to loot unless rationing is necessary. 2. Every man will receive their equal share of prizes and will receive a share of clothes if they go above and beyond. If a crewmate tries to defraud the company even $1 or rob another man on board, they will be marooned. 3. No gambling. 4. Lights out at 8. If you wish to stay up later, you may do so on the top deck without light. 5. Each crewmate must keep their cutlass and pistol clean at all times. 6. No women or children allowed on board. If a crewmate is caught trying to smuggle a woman on board, he will be killed. 7. Men who abandon the ship during combat will be punished by death. 8. No two men will fight on board. If a quarrel begins, it shall be resolved via duel. 9. No man will talk of breaking their share of prizes until everyone has a share of 1,000. Any man seriously injured in combat will be compensated accordingly. 10. This one just explains the pay. 11. Musicians will rest on Saturdays, all other days by favor only. It's crazy to think that pirates not only received workers' comp, but also had a bedtime. But a large part of being a pirate is, committing piracy. Not that kind. When pirates took over a ship, they killed as little people as possible. And while pirates did steal gold and jewels, like in the movies, they generally went after standard provision and equipment to help them stay at sea longer. But the most valuable thing for them was actually medicine. And the single coolest thing about pirates was the birds. I'm not biased at all. They generally were stolen to sell, but it wasn't unheard of for them to be kept. So the question ultimately boils down to, would you rather die of tuberculosis or scurvy? This question is not something I just thought of. I've been bothering my friends and generally anybody close to me with this. I asked a good amount of people, and the results were 18% voted cowboy and 72% voted pirate. And adding myself in, that number goes down even further. So now I ask you, I made a community post that's a poll on this very subject. Go vote in it if you don't mind. Or if you don't want to do that, I don't blame you. Comment it down below. And I mean, while you're down there, you could hit the subscribe button. It's right there. It's a free country, and I'm going to ask you to do something I've never asked before. If you like the video, share it around. Or if you don't think this video is worth the time, I made a short asking this exact same thing, just greatly condensed. Share that. I want to get as much data as possible. And more than anything else, thank you very much for watching, and have a good day.